Um, yeah, so TNO joined Eclipse Dataspace Working Group, I think, somewhere at the end of last year as a strategic member. Um, yeah, and basically it's a quite a good fit because we are already working in the realm of data space for, yeah, I think, somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 years. And I will give a little bit of context on why we joined, what we're doing, and how our work also fits in with the working group. So a little bit of context about TNO. Basically, TNO is the Dutch Research and Development Institute, basically founded by law. So it's grounded in Dutch law with an independent position. So there's basically a law in the Netherlands where we say, okay, there should be a TNO. And that's basically the starting point for us. And we basically have the goal to uh, make a bridge between research and businesses, right? To basically align that. Um, and the main mission is to connect people and knowledge to create innovations. So quite a broad mission. Also looking at with the different units that we have, we are also quite uh, quite wide in scope. But for the Eclipse Dataspace Working Group, especially the ICT strategy and policy unit is relevant here. That's also where I'm residing. And the basic idea around the what you know is to bring innovation to practice. Um, we are a non-profit, so with a lot of European projects, Dutch projects, but also be business-to-business projects. We have a revenue of around 600 million and around 4,000 people of staff, which is already a little bit older number, but in that neighborhood. Um, and so it's a relatively large company, but the scope is really around the research and innovation. And now, yeah, how does this link with Eclipse Database Working Group and also in databases? Basically, what we do, we have quite a few projects and ecosystem that we're part of. I've listed a couple. We are RDZ member for a long time and also a GAIA-X member. So that's already since for quite some years. More on the European ecosystems. And also with that, for instance, the Data Space Support Center that Javier already mentioned. We're part of this, the first DSC project and also now the second version, where my colleague Matthijs Punter also drove the blueprint and the information around there. But we're also doing similar things in the Netherlands with the Center of Excellence for Data Sharing and Cloud, which is a Dutch ecosystem of trying to provide businesses to grow their presence also in data spaces and to provide knowledge to people to actually grow that. So it's also more a sort of a generic project. And then, of course, we also have some more specific projects and the ecosystems that we drive. And so one of the more common ones that's mostly known is the Smart Collective Supply Network. And so the network around the Eindhoven area in the Netherlands, around ASML and Philips, with all the suppliers to those kind of companies, and with quite a long tier list of different companies in there, which is now a productive data space that's having around, I think now 600 manufacturing companies linked to that. And then with the whole setup that we initially created. And that's also something that we're now sort of adopting towards the new standards, towards the data space protocol, towards the different realms that basically to grow SCSN even further. But also an interesting one is Heracles, which was a Dutch project in healthcare setting where we had hospitals, insurance companies, and a lot of different parties that not always work together, have them together to share information around cancer research to make sure that you can actually exchange information in a secure way, in a price sensitive way with each other to basically enhance the whole structure of data sharing or knowledge sharing in such an ecosystem. Then, of course, we have also stronghold in standardization, of course, with the Sensei-Lec JC25, but also the Eclipse protocols, with the database protocol, decentralized claims protocol, and data plane signaling protocol where we're part of, and also work on to basically see can we align that also in the Netherlands. And one thing that we sort of do strongly with that is also the implementation of our own implementation of a stack of components, which I will go to a bit more detail later on. But this is the TNO security gateway, which is an independent implementation of these protocols. And of course, we also have, because we are also research driven and innovation driven, we are also looking at more advanced topics like privacy enhancing technologies, like federated learning, to see how can we use data spaces to use those kinds of technologies so that you can have an even better ecosystem, but also things like confidential computing, semantic interoperability, digital identities, so all kinds of topics related to data spaces that we're also doing research in and linking that to basically the whole stack that we are doing. So basically, the common thread around everything is connecting the ecosystems from a Dutch perspective, but also from a European perspective, standardization, implementation, and research, basically looping in and providing feedback to each other to enhance the different elements. So then a bit on the TNO Security Gateway, which is an open source independent implementation of data spaces. So we decided, okay, let's also make implementation independent for the different protocols to make sure that we validate them and to see, okay, what do we encounter when we create an implementation independently next to and together with the EDC connector thing, for example. And that's also the primary goal, to validate and enhance the specifications through implementation, also to link research and innovation to make sure that we can iterate fast, to try things like federated learning in a database to see, okay, how does that actually work. But quite importantly, the TSG is not a product pitch. So also from the goal of TNO, we're not selling the connector or providing it and saying, you should use the TSG instead of the EDC, for instance. No, it's for us more to showcase that it can work, that you also can implement these protocols also independently. And for us in our research project, it is actually sort of a workbench to work with this. And that's also what we are doing often, so connecting pilots to the specifications, to try things. And one of our goals is to also create a tooling around things like deployments and interactions to show also often in sessions where we try to provide companies hands-on experience with a data space and one of the important things there is to also be easily deployable and to easily interact with that. So how does it what does it look like, the TSG? We are now working on sort of the next version of it, but the primary components are the wallet, the control plane, and the data planes. So very similar to the EDC, with the identity hub. We have our own wallet created with the decentralized claims protocol, also some other protocols to try out to see how those other things work. The control plane implementing basically the database protocol for the cataloging, for the contracting, for the transfer orchestration, those kinds of elements. And we're now working on sort of adopting our existing data planes towards the data plane signaling protocol to align those and to see how how does it work, and then also to provide back to the database signaling protocol to see, okay, is everything implementable and usable easily. And what we're now sort of starting is that we actually try to create sort of an SDK to actually control all these components, because we see in a lot of our work, we see that people want to test out things, try things out more easily, and that's why we are now creating an SDK also for our components, so that you can create use case applications that are using these components, so that you don't have to have a deep dive into the control plane to change things, but that you can use the SDK to actually communicate with the components, and basically you can then combine this SDK inside your use case application to have an easy way of interacting. And so that's a bit of the way that we're now working towards, also to see does this paradigm with an SDK and then use case application in a separate way, does that work for people, and does that give benefit to the innovation that we try to foster. Of course, the question is about TSG and EDC, because they're implementing the same protocols in both applications, and that's also what we sort of want, to actually align the behavior to the TCKs, so also make sure that the TCKs test cover everything that should be covered to actually have interoperability. And to see, okay, what are the edge cases? What are the things that we didn't thought of directly when implementing it, for instance, in the EDC, and to see, okay, what comes out if you create an independent implementation, and see, okay, where are these edge cases, to make sure that these are aligned, and to basically identify the ambiguity. So actually the goal is to have implementations that can work together. So the TSG components should work together with the EDC components, and perhaps even the others. So that makes that you of course have the actual interactions between the components to be aligned properly. But actually our sort of the end goal that we actually have is to make these components also interchangeable, because that actually makes that all these lines have to be standardized and written well in a nice protocol and specifications, so that you can decide, okay, I want some component from TNO, some component from EDC, and perhaps even other components, for instance, for someone that creates a new data plane, that this interaction is actually something that can be can be done easily, that you not sort of stick, that you don't have to have a sort of a lock-in to either EDC or TSG or other components, but that you can actually interchange elements. So that's basically sort of the end goal. And of course, from a research perspective, after this end goal, we always have a new end goal that we will create. So that's it from my side. Any questions?
Thank you very much,
Martin, I have a question. So basically, if I understand well, so you have created like parallel implementation to the one of EDC. It's not based on the code base of EDC. It's just based on the protocols, and you have your own implementation, right? Did I understand well?
Yeah. So basically the idea, we created the whole implementation also in different language. So we used TypeScript for the whole connector, also to make sure that we are creating it sort of separately. Because if we, for instance, would have used Java, then copying things would be sometimes easier. But that's where we actually just, okay, let's use also a different language to actually have it fully independent.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Martin. And just to put my 2 cents also in this discussion, that's precisely what the working group is aiming for. So we are not wanting everybody to use EDC or any other project. We want everybody to be aligned at protocol level, so we can build interoperability through standard protocols, and everybody's free to use the technology they think is best suited for their application or their use case, based on those protocols. EDC, it's a great solution because it is open source and you can use it, and it will provide you adherence to these protocols, but it's up to anybody to do it as they please. So that's also wanted to reiterate this message.
Yeah, and perhaps also to add to that, also within our own work within TNO, we are also using EDC in different projects where we are more directed to sort of production environment. There we are actually using also the EDC for more stability, and so yeah, that also makes it good to use.
Okay, thank you very much, Martin. And also from my side, I am very happy to see TNO now as a strategic member of the working group. As you were saying, we were collaborating on many things, on standardization directly on the projects, but it is a good thing that you are now as a strategic member of the working group, because we are not just collaborating, you are helping us steering the strategy of the open source for data spaces directly as a strategic member. So thank you very much for joining.